Good morning. I'm Berks County Commissioner Christian Leinbach, and I want to welcome you to our operations meeting for Tuesday, October the 22nd. We are both in person and broadcasting live via Microsoft Teams live event. At this time, I'll recognize my executive assistant, Anne Marie Grill, to read the public comment policy.
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach. Public comment will be accepted in person and through the Q&A function. Please include your first name, last name, and municipality for all comments. Any comments without name and municipality will not be considered. Each citizen can submit one comment. Comment length is dictated by limitations of the platform being used. In-person comments will be accepted first, followed by comments submitted virtually. The meeting comment period is limited to a total of 30 minutes, including both in-person and virtual comments. This time period may be extended at the county's discretion. Please be concise. Comments that are germane to county business will be read during the meeting and should not be considered to be interactive dialogue. The county shall be the final arbiter of whether a comment is germane and should be read. Any response to public comment will be done at the county's discretion.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie. Are there any additions or corrections for the September 24th meeting minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. There's no public comment on agenda items in person, and I don't see anything online. There are two presentations today. One is really an ongoing report dealing with Imagine Berks, and we have a number of our partners here involved in Imagine Berks, and by partners, some are direct county employees, the IDA, Jeremy. You did notice I wore my IDA shirt. If I had a planning commission shirt, I might have worn that. If I had an ag shirt, I might have worn that.
We haven't gotten any, right?
Yeah, we haven't gotten any, but I did get a nice golf shirt from the IDA, so I wore it today.
Actually, I don't think we have an Imagine Berks shirt on either. Like that.
No,
like
I don't
Derek.
think so.
Yeah. The only one is the IDA. That's what I have.
Oh, and I'm looking for Pam back here, and Pam is already up here. The second item, I'll introduce you in a moment, is a report, and this is really the first time we're doing this. I think earlier in the year when Kevin Barnhart and Larry and their team submitted a project overview, I looked at it, and even though we direct what they are supposed to do, I won't speak for my colleagues. I was kind of blown away when I saw the list of what is being done and worked on, and suggested that that's something maybe once or twice a year, giving a public update where we can talk about that. Both of these items really, unless we're in trouble, don't get discussed in executive session. So this is an opportunity on economic development for the commissioners and all of the stakeholders, at least from a core county leadership standpoint, to hear an update and to have an open public discussion. And same thing with our COO team and operations project. So with that, I'm going to recognize Pamela Mennett. She is our Director of Community and Economic Development and is the lead on the Imagine Berks economic strategy. Pam.
Thank you. Commissioners, it's been a little over 2 years. And in August of 2022, the Imagine Berks plan was formally adopted. The same foundation that gave that plan its initial successes continues to drive its successful implementation. Collaboration, cooperation, and commitment.
Take two. Nobody online heard a thing you said.
Okay. Commissioners, it's been a little over 2 years. In August 2022, the Imagine Berks plan was formally adopted. The same foundation that gave the plan its initial successes continues to drive its successful implementation. Collaboration, cooperation, and commitment. I'd like to recognize the project team and department heads that are here today. Without them, this plan doesn't work, and the plan for the county doesn't work. So I'm going to tell you that these folks every day work with me and with their departments in order to implement the actionable tasks that are found in the plan. David Hunter and Ashley Showers from the Berks County Planning Commission, Jeremy Zaborowski from the Berks County Industrial Development Authority, Derek Harris, who works with me in Community and Economic Development, Amber our new director of the Department of Agriculture is here today as well. This team uses its established relationships with the community and economic development stakeholders and partners, and this plan has only deepened those catalytic relationships. Our daily work is guided by the plan, and every day we learn more about the interconnectedness of the focus areas. I'll give you an example later of how we use that data to understand our challenges and the interconnectedness of the focus areas. And just remember that what you are about to see today is only a snapshot of the past year and probably in no way can capture everything that occurs under the Imagine Berks umbrella. The key principles of the plan remain top of mind and truly direct our work. Particular attention this year has been paid to promoting redevelopment activity and gaining deeper understanding of improving the tax base. And those obviously are two of the key principles there. The others are listed as well. In one of the first focus areas, known as Build, it is to encourage industrial commercial redevelopment and support the development that increases our tax base. There has been so much this past year. Under broadband and broadband education specifically, we've provided funds to the Berks County Intermediate Unit for the Digital Navigator program. That was $300,000 for a 2-year program, and its implementation is well underway. The Berks Community Health Center, we provided funds for a self-monitoring blood pressure program that is designed to mitigate and address early on chronic illnesses. We also provided funds most recently to Connections Work so that they can expand the digital literacy of their impacted populations that they serve. We also are supporting smart growth in huge ways, I can't say enough about the event that was coordinated, and our team member there, David Hunter, put this event together with his team and with the Reading Berks Association of Realtors and others to talk about building the boroughs and specifically about smart growth. So we're putting a lot of communication pathways in place and mechanisms so that this ongoing dialogue with municipalities can continue. And it's building on those successful regional meetings that were held last year all throughout the county. In addition, there's 4 joint comp plans already identified and underway, and there are a few more being considered. And commissioners, thanks to you, at the meeting on October 3rd, we were able to announce that we will provide assistance for multi-municipality zoning updates and announce that funds up to $10,000 would be available for municipalities who committed to and are going to undertake joint municipal planning, which is the outgrowth of the joint comp plan. Also, supporting agribusiness industry growth. The ag study is underway. It's known as Growing Berks, and there is an advisory committee, and they will be reviewing final draft versions of the study within the next month. The ag community felt that there wasn't a lot of substance in the Imagine Berks plan regarding ag. The study's underway, as I said, nearing completion, and it will truly give us a sound basis to understand the economic importance of ag in Berks, and it will be practical and implementable actions that come out of this and how we best support ag in Berks County. We also have the infrastructure fund that will be administered by the Berks County Industrial Development Authority, and that truly is designed to support our municipalities in planned growth and development in their communities. And we think that's a very important component as we identified infrastructure as one of the roadblocks to successful development and redevelopment in Berks County. Also under this focus area are 2 projects very near and dear to our hearts and very high up in our priorities. That, of course, is the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority and our commitment to restoring passenger rail service to Berks County that continues to be very effectively spearheaded. Commissioner Linebaugh, thank you so much for your leadership. David Hunter also represents us on the Schuylkill River Passenger Rail Authority. And it's very important to understand that that is a regional cooperative effort between Berks County, Chester County, and Montgomery County. Also, Reading Aviation. And I put up Reading Aviation instead of Reading Regional Airport Authority because our goal really has been to up-level our acknowledgement of the airport as an economic driver in this community. And I think one of the most remarkable ways possible that that has happened in the last year is the creation of Reading Aviation from the former privately owned fixed-based operators that were on site. And a fixed-based operator is the front line when folks fly into Reading. Business, recreational, whatever that may be, Reading Aviation is that front line, and it's been so important to raise the level of customer service. It's been very important in raising the awareness about how all of the great things that we have to offer at Reading Airport, and that in turn allows folks to come in and recognize all we have to offer in this region. I could go on and on about Reading Aviation, and I'm very appreciative to be part of the creation of the FBO as part of the Airport Authority Board, and just telling you that great things are coming, more to come through Reading Aviation and Reading Airport. Under small business and entrepreneurship, there's been a lot of activity. We had originally started with providing funds for the Financial Lending Innovation Cooperative at Alvernia in the amount of $100,000. Those were micro grants. And then we went into understanding that micro loans were also very important to our small business and entrepreneur community because it truly allowed them to repair credit that may be a part of their journey, and to get them to the point where they would be able to ultimately qualify for traditional financing. So with these microloans, and there's been 16 so far, we're facilitating credit repair, but also allowing entrepreneurs and small businesses to get their legs underneath them so that they can continue to be successful, continue to grow. We've also provided a micro grant to Berks Launchbox. That is underway, and micro grants are being provided to them. And that is called Imagining Your Business. So those grants are available now. We also, as part of small business and entrepreneurship, and this particular item really crosses focus areas, the buy local efforts continue to be a point of focus. And we originally recognized this during the pandemic, but really has come to light about we want to know where our food comes from, and we want to be able to promote local products and provide markets and pathways for our local producers to be able to grow those markets. So Grow Together by Berks, Support Local, is part of our campaign, and it's being really well utilized with and populated by our farms and farm markets. There's over 250 farms, markets, CSAs, et cetera, access to local food showing up there. And our Department of Agriculture updates that website on a daily basis. Under talent and economic mobility, we are, as you know, really blessed to have the career technology centers that we do in the community, and they continue to be an incredible resource for us to be able to access talent while still at a high school age and be able to bring them into the workforce, and always preferably here in Berks County. So we have some workforce readiness and upskilling initiatives. We did have 47 high-set graduates. We also have the Youth Reentry Grant. That's $800,000 currently being administered. That was one of the largest awards throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Youth reentry and targeting disconnected youth, very difficult population to serve, but so critically important to try and bring that population into our labor force. We also continue to support the Meet Greater Reading brand, which the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance uses not only as a talent attraction and retention tool, but also as a branding tool for Berks County. So when you see Meet Greater Reading, and we always tell folks, we're not just talking about the city, we are talking about Berks County, and we're talking about a brand that is being put out not just in Berks County to local stakeholders, but also external stakeholders, so that we can build awareness about our community and attract and retain talent. Our career link has seen 2 incredibly successful job fairs in 2024. Over 3,000 job seekers just in those 2 job fairs alone have been participants, and they connected with over 120 different employers in Berks County. That's just the career link job fairs. We just had an aviation career expo and job fair at the Reading Airport this past weekend, which we believe the estimates are that over 1,000 folks attended that job fair. Also, we have an upcoming on November 14th is an Ag Career Expo and Job Fair. And it will not just highlight traditional agriculture career pathways, but also environmental as well. And it is just incredible the interaction that we were able to have with high school students who attend our public school system, homeschooled students, and it attracts others who are interested in connecting with those employers and organizations to find out what their career opportunities are in agriculture and environmental organizations. Under placemaking has always been a focus area that has a lot of moving pieces, because one component piece of that is really our community recreation, our parks, our public spaces. And of course, in December of 2022, the Greenways Plan was formally adopted. And a lot of that work, thank you very much, Ashley Showers, in terms of the implementation, when we put dollars out there and the planning staff met under Ashley's direction to figure out how we deploy the most effective funds into the community to implement this plan. And we said that this plan already comes under the umbrella of Imagine Berks, and we're going to take in the Greenways recommendations and implementation actions as part of Imagine Berks. So that is well underway. Some of the projects, and I'll highlight those in just a moment, that you've seen as part of this funding are things like Davies Splash Pad, which we have celebrated recently this summer, and of course, even more recently, the Goggleworks Public Interactive Art Park, all of which we had a part in, and all of which play into creating inclusive and desirable public spaces and places for people to congregate in our community. We are also supporting a number of anchor projects in our boroughs and main streets. We were able to do a lot of that with our community project funding. But more importantly now, we are supporting our main streets and boroughs with real-time market data, which is incredibly important to them to have access to that data because their resources are being stretched thin and they need to know how to target those resources. So Derek Harris has been our point person on a software package called Placer AI, and he has been able to design custom information and reports for our main streets and boroughs for their utilization. And that's certainly going to continue into year 3 as well. Under housing, we identified that our housing gap was a little over 5,600 units of underproduction in Berks County to meet our population needs and demands. So at this point, you will see that there are 2,800 units approved in the housing pipeline, and that housing pipeline and that information comes directly through our Berks County Planning Commission. We are a wealth of data and information that we are able to access in order to help affect the policies and strategies and action items that we have in the plan, which is a very dynamic process. Since 2021, there have been 3,200 units built in Berks County. Between 2022, the year we adopted the plan, in 2024, there's been 2,600 units that have been under construction. What we're doing right now is trying to ensure that the units that are coming online are aligning with the market demands of what our population communities want to see. So for example, there are a number of market rate apartments that are included in there. There are a number of townhomes, a number of singles, there are mobile homes included in there. And we need to understand the geographic disbursement of those projects. Are they meeting the needs of communities? And then also, are we matching the type with the market demand? Because that's something that's very important in terms of attainable housing. We've provided funds to the Berks County Redevelopment Authority to kickstart some projects that might not otherwise move forward because they would not be financially feasible. And those include the rehabilitation of some blighted units and some infill development as well, which we think is really important, especially under smart growth principles and our commitment to redevelopment. So here's where I want to talk about a little bit of the connection between focus areas. When we launched Imagine Berks, we talked about something called opportunity jobs. And at that point in time that we identified that an opportunity wage was about a little over $63,000. Well, it was time to update that number, and we determined that that number now is actually $78,000. So we took a look at what type of jobs are out there that are paying that range of salaries, and we found teachers, electricians, production workers, supervisors, and this is just a sampling of types of careers. Health information technologists, registered nurses are all falling at or above that opportunity wage. Well, then we wanted to take a look at, well, if you're earning the opportunity wage, are you able to afford housing in Berks County? And that's been a really volatile subject for us because with interest rates moving and new units coming online, those price points, not only for apartment units, but also for housing and mortgage rates, are impacting the purchasing power of our community. So if you had a job at an opportunity wage level and your housing budget is 30% of your pre-tax income, you can afford about $1,950 a month. Well, there are a number of 2-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom apartments that are at the $2,000 range per month. And for home ownership right now, when we ran this report, and that number is also a number in flux, it was about $286,000. So if you were looking at a payment calculator for that, if the rate was 7.5%, your monthly payment's $1,900. So we are really teetering on the ability for folks who earn an opportunity wage to be able to get into housing and be able to have it qualify as affordable for them. So this isn't just about low-income housing. This is about attainable housing for people who are working and hopefully earning above or at the opportunity job range. Because I think a lot of folks think, oh, if you want to talk about affordable, we're just talking about subsidized housing, and that's not what we're talking about. This is kind of our everyday population housing. So just want to highlight a couple things, a little bit of visual presentation here. What you see on the screen are a number of the employers who have participated in our career fair. And I know that it's very small, but we're utilizing their logos and understanding the mix of companies that are showing up at our career fairs in order to access job seekers. And I think that's a very impressive because these employers cover all of our industry sectors and all areas of Berks County. I'm building the boroughs on there, and building up boroughs again, October 3rd was the date for that event. It was determined when we met afterward that it was so successful that we should do it again, and maybe even do something in between in the springtime to bring our municipalities back together to continue to have conversation and build deep relationships with them. In 2025, we're going to start the Berks County Comprehensive Plan update, and the Planning Commission and under David and Ashley's direction, has really made incredible efforts and inroads with our municipalities to establish relationships so that when we go to them to seek their input, we're already going to be knowing who we need to ask to come to the table, and they're going to know who we are as well. The Berks Launchbox and the Imagine Your Business grants has been an incredible highlight this year. We help to fund the Emerging Entrepreneurs Academy as well, which is highlighting high school students to teach them about entrepreneurship. The Reading Film Office has an incredible project underway that are doing video to highlight the inventory of filming locations throughout Berks County, but we can also use that as a branding tool to talk about our community. What you see also there is Davy's Splash Pad, a photo from that event. And in the bottom corner, I put up Barrio Alegria because Barrio Alegria was one of the organizations that we also funded to provide program activity and recreation and to activate spaces along the riverfront for our youth. And that has really been incredibly successful. So, commissioners, I was a little slow on the uptake here for this particular slide because we're not at $28.6 million of impact. We are over $29 million of impact. So this graph actually represents federal, state, local funds that have been directed to the implementation of the plan. So we called our investment circle. And we have participated in projects that we would otherwise not have been able to participate in or would have been difficult to undertake by an organization or a municipality. And we were able to step in and help with those projects that we knew would be impactful to the community and also have legacy impact on our residents. And then commissioners, what you see here, you also have a handout and we're providing this to folks and just kind of how do we do a one-page snapshot of the successes that we've realized. And so you'll see our key metrics for investment here. You'll see in each of our focus areas what we really can tout about what are the successes that we continue to see in terms of metrics under Imagine Berks. We're also going to be looking ahead to year 3. So at this point, we believe that in year 3, we will be focusing on growing Berks, the roadmap for our agriculture impact study and roadmap for its future, our comprehensive plan update, the infrastructure fund will be launched. Broadband, it's still a question of what's ahead for Berks County in terms of infrastructure, but we are at the table with an organization convened by the Wyomissing Foundation and has all of our broadband partners at the table called the Digital Equity Coalition. Will continue to be at that table so that we can best determine how we leverage and effectively spend resources for broadband, both those who are unconnected or do not have effective connection speeds. Also, the increased collaboration and support for our boroughs and city. And I will say that we have the city of Reading included on there. Thanks to David Hunter and his relationships with the planning team at the city. We are able to be at the table when the city stepped back and took a look at its downtown strategic plan and decided that they could move forward at this point and actually adopt that plan. And that's something that we thought has been very important since the very beginning of Imagine Berks, where we committed to including the city's plan into Imagine Berks. So I encourage everyone to visit our website. This is our home screen of imagineberks.org. So presentations, the one-page summary, all things are available there to be downloaded. And we use that as a platform to keep our stakeholders and community up to date on activity that happens under Imagine Berks. So commissioners, throughout year 3, we will continue to ask our community, how do you imagine Berks?
Thank you very much, Pam. I personally think this was the best update we've received. Not that the others weren't good. This was just really great information. Some observations. I think it's important for the public to realize without the American Rescue Plan money, the funding would not have been available for this effort. That's where the money came from. One of the commitments the prior board made in allocating those dollars, we were looking for long-term impacts and benefits to the community. And I think what you outlined today very much focuses on that. Secondly, I think it's important for, at least from my perspective, in my 17th year, We have unprecedented cooperation between departments, ag, planning, economic development, authorities, the IDA, the redevelopment authority. And without that, I don't believe we and you could have been as successful as we are. I don't want to give any examples, but I remember in the past having issue come up and going to ag and getting one opinion there and going to planning and get another opinion there and IDA and others, and kind of sit back and say, what the heck do? I have no clear direction. But the effort that everybody puts into this is really appreciated. I think it's important to recognize the value. One of your principles is increasing the tax base. That is important to the average taxpayer. When a county is not growing in population, not growing in its tax base, it simply increases the tax burden on the people that are there. So we are actively looking for other economic growth to pick up our tax base for county government. You talked about the joint zoning program. This is another unprecedented step. Historically, Berks County leads the way in mergers of communities, municipalities. It leads the way in joint comp plans. But the problem's been a joint comp plan provides some cooperation, but it doesn't really provide the core benefit of zoning on a wider mapping area. And the reason that's important, federal law requires that every planning zone must provide for every use. In the rest of the country, for the most part, that's county. So your planning and zoning is done on a countywide basis. In Pennsylvania, because of the municipal structure, it's done at the municipal level. I believe Berks is 70 or 71 municipalities. And even though we have joint comp plans, we have 72 municipalities, we still are zoning at 72. These municipalities that are coming together to produce a joint zoning program will be able for the first time to look at multiple municipalities and meet the need of long-term planning. The ag community, one of the fundamental strengths here is the growth in diversity of ag. I talked a little bit about this, I think maybe at the, actually, I'm not sure where I mentioned it, but I mentioned it recently that 30 years ago, you had cattle, grain, hogs, beef, beef is cattle, dairy, some orchards and things like that, but the diversity, the explosion of the poultry industry, the ducks, llamas, goats, meat goats. Up on Rake Road, there's a farm that's what they raise. Even 15, 20 years ago, you didn't hear about that, but that diversity is very important. To that end, you mentioned the Ag Career Fair. That is coming up on November 14th. It's at the Leesport Farmers Market. It begins at 8:30 a.m. and it goes to 11:30 a.m. It's free. It's especially targeting high school students, college students, and adults that are looking at a possible career change. And having been involved in this for decades now, the ag careers are not necessarily going to a farm and raising cattle. It is so diverse, biochemistry, engineering, a wide area. Last thing I want to touch on is the housing. The importance of housing is particularly critical for the working poor, those at the lower end of the economic class. And we've talked about this before, but what has happened in recent years because of a lack of overall housing on almost all levels, individuals that are wealthier are dropping down because there's not enough houses for them, and they're buying at a lower level, knocking the buyers there out, going down to the lower level, and the working poor are literally being kicked out onto the street. When you combine the inflation issues around groceries and energy, we are seeing first-time homelessness in this county, and you're seeing it other places, of families, and housing is one of the big drivers. They cannot afford housing, which brings me to my only question. Your study showed that this group, the 78,000 group, that $1,900 a month for housing was affordable. Does the $1,900 include taxes?
No.
That's a big factor because that number, depending where they are, can go up significantly. And it's another reason this study, implementing of this study and growing our tax base is so important, so we can make housing more affordable. In many cases, if you look at this 1,900, you'll find that rental rates are actually higher for the same square footage than what a person would pay on a mortgage. And that is what is driving folks out. Jonathan Heinzman, I think it's in the latest issue of Berks First, very interesting article on homelessness as it relates to Berks County. And that is one of the factors, families living out of their car because of the unaffordability of housing. So I know that was a lot, but you presented some really great information. That's what I have.
So Pam, thank you for the work you do. Thank you to the team that's here as well. But I also want to take the opportunity to not only thank our internal team, right? Because the implementation of Imagine Berks isn't something that Berks County government can do on its own. We've had many, many other external partners as well that have come in to help with the implementation, such as the Reading Berks Association of Realtors, the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance, Alvernia with the FLIC program, Penn State Berks with the Lunchbox, CELG, Barrio Alegría, and many, many, many others, because we can't do everything. We have to understand what our strength is, what our position is, and we need to partner with those who are out there and can get the work done for the benefit of the community. So I want to thank the internal team, but I also want to thank those external partners as well who have played a role in moving Imagine Berks forward. It's hard to believe that it's been 2 years already that this plan was put into place, and something that the Board of Commissioners wanted at that point when we said we're going to look at this plan is we said we don't want to spend the time and the money to put the plan together and put it in the shelf or in a drawer and then pull it out every year, every 2 years, or at the end of the 3-year plan and say, well, what was accomplished? You know, we hope by putting this plan together, things will fall into place. We didn't do that. We didn't hope it would fall into place. We have a plan, an implementation plan to help move this plan forward. And that's what we're seeing today moving forward. I'm also glad to see that based on Imagine Berks, we saw that there wasn't as much meat as we really wanted around agriculture. Mm-hmm. And we put the ag study into place, and that there are also implementation steps in that study as well. Again, you have nothing with a study. A study doesn't do anything for you if you don't have those implementation steps and the partners to help implement those steps. So glad to see that. Another thing here, I want to touch on housing as well. If we look back to a year, 2, 3, 4 years ago, there was on average single family homes in Berks County available, around 330 homes on any given day. If you look at homes available to move into right away, it was a little under 300 because some of those 300 and some new homes were new construction that hadn't been built yet. When you look at the last 4 to 6 months, we're a little bit over 400, anywhere between 430 and 430. So the amount of single family homes has increased by about 33 to 35% percent from a year or 2 years ago, which is good, but still not anywhere close to the about 900 homes that should be on the market to have a regular market. Right now, we are still in a seller's market. About 900 is a neutral market here in Berks County. So still a way to go, but we've at least have seen those numbers increase a little bit. But on the other hand, as it was mentioned, we've also seen rental prices increase also. And that has put a huge stress on working families that are not yet at that opportunity wage level. My wife is on the board of a local shelter here. And at their last board meeting, they mentioned that they receive an average of 60 applications a month for shelter for women, and women are children, 60. Right now, they're running at 90% capacity. They don't run at 100 because they want rooms available in case there's an emergency that they have to take someone in immediately, but they've been constantly running at a 90% capacity and receiving applications that they have to turn down almost on a daily basis. So there's still a huge need out there for that housing crisis. So it's something that's extremely important that we continue to work on here in Berks County, and it's homes to purchase, but also rental homes as well, because the reality is not everyone is going to be able to buy a house, and not everyone should buy a house. But we need to make sure that there's housing for people who want and need to rent, and that there's housing for people that want and need to buy as well. So that's something that we want to keep an eye on as well. And that's all I have. Just want to thank you again for being intentional about moving this process forward and making sure that we are staying on track with Imagine Berks. And thank you to the team as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very briefly, my colleagues have explained well and the importance of Imagine Berks. I wish I could take credit for it. Obviously, I wasn't here at the time, so I can't. But I look forward to supporting it as we move forward. Thank you, Pam, and your team for all the great work that you do and all the resources that you provide to the commissioners. Keep us in the loop of what's happening with all the things that Imagine Berks touches, and it touches everything: small business, housing, employment, et cetera, Parks and Rec, and the whole gamut that people really can appreciate and expect from their local governments. Just two items that I think are really important, and you've done a terrific job in implementing, is the collaboration that you provide with local municipalities. I think that's really important with the comprehensive plans, with the mergers and the potential mergers. I think with 72 municipalities and all the different planning and zoning committees and all of that, it's important that we look to maybe tighten that up a little bit, make it more taxpayer friendly, and provide the resources that we can to help those local municipalities. And my colleagues both talked about housing, and I'm glad that that's one of the year 3 key action plans. That housing is important. We have to make sure we provide affordable housing for the people that we want to keep here and that we want to bring here. So thank you so much for all that you do. I really appreciate it. That's all I have. Except my final note is, I know that we don't have T-shirts from Imagine Berks, but I do have a pen from Imagine Berks. So we're good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pam. Appreciate it. And again, thank you to the partners that are here today. The next presentation is the Operations Project Overview. And at this time, I'll recognize our Chief Operations Officer, Kevin Barnhart. Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach and the board and everyone here this morning. Good morning. It is our pleasure to present to you our just a short list of our projects and priorities for the COO team, also known as Kevlar. We have most of our staff here this morning, with the exception of Brittany Frankowski, who's on a well-deserved vacation. At the request of the board, as well as the general public, we would like to provide this presentation on a twice-a-year basis, just to give people an update on the status, because we have so many balls in the air right now with various departments. It's important to keep a focus on that and obviously open up to any questions you might have. Here's our operations team. We have team uniforms, logos. We continue to look for other opportunities, maybe hats and pens and those sorts of things. So we'll take orders after the meeting. But from left to right is obviously myself, the operations officer, Jesse Blauser, one of our dynamic executive assistants. Jonathan Heinzman, that fell in the middle, is our public relations officer who takes front and center on the Berks First magazine. Brittany Frankowski, another phenomenal executive assistant. They are the glue. The two ladies on the other side of Jonathan are the glue that keep us together and keep us sane. Amanda Binsel, our transplant from Texas. She says we talk too fast here. And we actually imported a Cowboys fan into our group, but
Whoa,
we
whoa,
don't,
we didn't go see that on the interview.
it didn't come out in the interview, but we found out later.
Cowboys
And
fan.
of course, Larry, my right-hand man, I certainly couldn't do anything without Larry. We jokingly say that we finish each other's sentences now. And who would have thought in a span of a little less than 2 years that we're brothers, and we don't do anything without each other's support or advice along with the team. So it's really heartwarming that just by fate, all these folks are put together by the board, and we're doing the good work for the folks in Berks County. My favorite slide is the iceberg slide. I know we should have identified what that is, but Larry, coming from 26 years as a Register of Wills and myself 15 years as a commissioner, we didn't realize that we only saw 20%. Now in this role, we see the other 80%, which is underwater. Now, what we're going to present here today are a lot of projects and priorities, but there are so many other things that go on in the course of a day, those things that jump up and bite you in the you-know-what, whether it's staffing, HR, personnel, budget items, those sorts of things. There's always things that creep up. You come into work with your list of 20 items to accomplish, and at the end of the day, you may have knocked one off your list. So that's our life. We see the other 80%. It's good for everyone to just have an understanding of the Berks organizational chart. The two columns more toward the center, the one on the far left are the row officers, the ones in green. We do have meetings with them on a bi-monthly basis to get updates and advice from them on how to improve their operations. They are separately elected. But if you look at I would call that pumpkin color down through the middle, that is our structure, and all the departments below in yellow, and of course to the right-hand side, leading off with the Director of Economic Development. That is our focus. It's at least 24 various departments under our oversight. And then, of course, you have on parallel with us is the Director of Human Resources, the solicitor, and then on the far right is the courts, the judicial piece that we do meet with on a monthly basis. Again, separate and distinct from us, but we certainly have that rapport and relationship with the row officers as well as the court system. And then I don't know what that color is there, greenish color. Those are the various boards that the commissioners serve on, or other elected officers serve on those boards. So you can see for the public, obviously everyone in this room knows that structure, but this is the structure that's critically important when people say, we don't really know what the County of Berks does. Well, certainly there's a snapshot of the multitude of departments. We are the largest human service provider in the county, bar none. And there is a lot of moving pieces here that takes place with almost 2,100 employees throughout the various departments. So that is very important to have. If anyone would like to have that, we can certainly email it to them so they have a chart.
Kevin, we may want to consider putting that on our website under someplace where it is.
It is, yep.
And we'll have to change the name of Director of Human Resources to Chief Human Resources Officer. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna just jump in here. And
who are you?
well, I'll tell you now that you asked. Thank you. I'm Larry Medaglia. I'm the Deputy Chief Operations Officer, the LAR and the Kevlar team. And I want to just say and echo Kevin's sentiments. If you'd have told us 2 years ago that this kind of bond and relationship would have formed between the two of us, I don't think we could have seen it coming. And I think in reality, because of that, that's why I think, being able to be effective and do what we do. We're so in sync. It's crazy. We don't make a move without talking to the other. And the work ethic, our approach to work, all of it. It's really dynamic. And we've got a great team that supports us. Jesse and Britt are just absolutely awesome. Jonathan does a great job with keeping message for the county entirely. And Amanda's our newbie, and she's jumped right in and fits right in too. So we're glad to have her. So we appreciate the support that you've gotten. One of the things we do when we go out to talk to our departments is we're constantly saying to them, we're here to advocate for you, to give you the tools and resources you need to be successful. We want to thank the board for giving us those tools to be able to be successful. And we think when you get done with this, you're going to see an awful lot of things that have happened, and we're proud of that and a whole lot more to do. So I'm going to start off with the space allocation study. As you know, we engaged Beers Hoffman Architects to come in and review essentially all of the county facilities. That was a major undertaking. We're about to embark on the first major renovations of the downtown campus in 30 years. So that is going to be very significant. One of the things that Beers Hoffman did for us as a consultant and professional architects is they helped us address how the workplace has changed. The reality is that the pandemic caused people to take a look at how work gets done and where it gets done. And one of the things that has also changed is the need for open and flexible space in the workplace, because so much more work is collaborative. And you see that no matter where you go, and it's certainly no different in county government. So we're hoping that with the design that is I would say 99% complete, it's certainly going to bring some added efficiencies. It's also going to create a welcoming environment for the public when they come in to visit. Hopefully that means more effective delivery of services. And we have to acknowledge that we now have in many departments the hybrid work environment where you work remotely and you work downtown. Some of those folks don't all need private offices now. So they adapted what we call hoteling spaces. So you can come and go and the next worker can jump right into that spot and be able to be productive. The employment market has changed. That shouldn't come as a lot of news to anybody in here, but for folks outside who may not be engaged in it like we are, part of recruitment and retention, a good bit of that hinges on what kind of work environment am I going to have. And this is something that we're striving to provide an attractive place to work where people can be efficient and effective in their work. Finally, it really does set up the downtown campus for not just meeting our current needs, but looking forward, we hope for another 25 to 30 years, long after all of us have left this scene. This downtown campus should be able to effectively serve not just county government, but the public at large. So with that, I'll hand it back to Kevin.
So how do we tie part of the space allocation and the changes in the downtown campus, and how do we go there? Is the South Campus is a big part of this. About 3 years ago, we embarked on a mission to find storage space for our elections equipment. Well, we came upon the building out in Moton, which we're now calling the South Campus, and it's actually going through 3 phases. We are now in the last and final phase 3. The first phase was, as you see at the top of the screen, the Berks County Redevelopment Authority, which is the owner of the facility. We are leasing the space from the Redevelopment Authority. They're on the ground floor. MDJ Yacht was moved from a facility that was owned by Cumru Township into this. It's state of the art now, has all the amenities he was looking for. The Book Bonanza, actually, I'm sorry. So election storage was the critical need. So that was phase 1. And now into phase 2, we have community economic development. Pam Mennett's team is now situated at the South Campus. The Book Bonanza, which had their first mini sale in a number of years, we have provided space for them at little to no cost, and they are just over the moon about having a permanent facility. I think over the last 20 some years, they have probably been in at least 5 or 6 different locations. They're like the redheaded stepchild, but now they have a location. They are just it's gangbusters. This facility has 300 parking spaces to the rear of the structure. So there's plenty of room for people to come out and really support the library system and the foundation. We also have archives, which was part of phase 2. They were originally at a rented facility at the airport site. They were relocated to this site and has all the state-of-the-art fire suppression equipment and everything they need for the future build out of archives. We moved them through the month of May. And as I say, to the third phase, which is underway now, which should complete by spring of 2025, is the folks that are downtown, Area Agency on Aging, AAA, Assessment and Mapping, Workforce Development Board, the Planning Commission, which occupies at least half of the 14th floor here, and the Industrial Development Authority. One of the key ingredients here with the AAA is access for those over 60. It's difficult, if not challenging, to try to get to the 8th floor of the services center for people that are looking for aging services. So they will occupy a prominent site at the rear of this facility, right through the ramp. There's an ADA compliant ramp and a walkway there. They'll be the first ones in on the left-hand side of the newly renovated area space there. So it's really going to be wonderful. BARDA does run out there. We are in talks with BARDA about actually not just stopping at MDJ Yock's office, but going around to the canopy area, making it a second quick stop for any folks who are here for those services.
And just to maybe circle back on one thing with the relocation of those departments, that obviously works in conjunction with what we're doing downtown with the space allocation study. Move some out, get them located, and it allows us to reconfigure the downtown campus a little bit. Next, we want to talk to you a little about the Ag Center and what's happening out there. You'll see from this slide that it shows the outside improvements to the building, and they kind of hint at what's to come and what's going on inside there. In particular, if you look at the right rear of the building, that's the former warehouse area, and that has been converted substantially. One of the things that we felt was important was to follow the goals that the commissioners established for us, which was, let's try to repurpose our facilities instead of demolition or new construction. Let's go out and take existing properties. It's much more cost efficient to do it that way. So we've engaged in that process, not just with the Ag Center, but you'll also see that happening over at South Campus. And we'll talk about the shelter and some others. But in terms of the Ag Center, this building is 51 years old. It was built in 1973. This has not had a significant refresh or renovation since it was built. It's like walking into a time portal when you go out there at times. But there are some very significant changes that are coming. Among the most significant is probably the 30,000 square feet of former warehouse space that's now been converted into use for the conservation district, and the USDA will have its offices there as well. In addition, we are looking at the need to reconfigure and upgrade and update some of the public spaces, in particular the restroom facilities that are there. Really were not ADA compliant. They are now, and those that are in phase 1 of this project, phase 2 will address the remainder. We're also going to have, if you can remember back to the warehouse area on one side of that, facilities and operations, we'll have a first-rate workshop out there for the folks that maintain our facilities around the county. In addition, they will have some office space there too, and that will hopefully wrap up phase 1 by the end of this year or early next. We did run into some construction delays, not because of any problem other than supply chain. We were just not able to get air handler units, rooftop units, and that delayed the project. So we're on track now to get that wrapped up. And then we'll start phase 2. That will likely start sometime mid to end of the second quarter of next year. That's going to include new offices for the coroner. That gets them out of rented space, so it's a cost savings in the long run. Right now, the coroner occupies rented space out by the airport. We'll be able to eliminate that. In addition, we're going to add energy efficient windows to the exterior, as well as energy efficient exterior surfaces for the building. Again, looking towards cost savings and a life extension of that property. We're going to renovate offices for our own agricultural department, as well as providing an office space for the Solid Waste Authority. And we're doing a major upgrade to the auditorium. One of the things I think that Kevin and I learned in this process is how heavily used that auditorium at the Ag Center is. It's almost every day that somebody has something going on out there, either during the week or on the weekends. And it was really in need of an updating, and we're looking at getting that done as well. In addition, we're going to add, there's many people don't know that if you're up on stage, if you pull that curtain back, there's a kitchen back there. The kitchen is a demonstration kitchen because the Ag Department and Penn State Extension, who also has offices out there and whose offices will get refreshed, they do demonstration cooking. So we're going to provide an update for that kitchen too. And next, if we can, we'll jump over, as long as we're out at North Campus, we'll take a look at the youth shelter.
That was quick. Youth detention.
Yep, there you go.
I got
So-
20 fingers.
Again, trying to be consistent with the repurposing of facilities. As you know, the Berksheim or former Berksheim Annex was home to the immigration shelter for many years. When that program ended, we had a facility that was essentially sitting vacant, and we looked at what could we do to repurpose that facility and find a useful life for it. One of the things, unfortunately, is we determined pretty quickly on in Kevin's and my tenure is that there's a desperate need for shelter bed space, not just in Berks County, but across the Commonwealth. So this was an initiative really, I think, that germinated with Commissioner Rivera, who handed it off and said, okay, you guys go get this thing done. And what get it done meant was to repurpose that facility to create a youth shelter program that right now our target sweet spot is going to be 20 beds. The goal was always 10 or so from Berks County, and the potential to house 10 from outside. We do have a license for 50 children, but we don't ever anticipate getting to that level. But we could easily expand if we had the staffing and the need for it out to 30 beds. So that is certainly a possibility. Currently, we have 8 kids in the facility. That has been, since we opened in July, that's been about our operating weekly average. It's intended to be a short-term residential program, but we do have one child who has been there now for 67 days. And to be honest with you, it's going great for him, and we're really pleased how well that has worked. The shortest stay right now, 4 days. We are evenly balanced with 4 kids from CYS and 4 kids from JPO. And just want to.
Could you clarify what that means?
Sure. CYS, Children and Youth
Versus youth
Services.
detention.
Right. And juvenile probation, we have 4 kids placed there. These are kids that are criminal justice involved, but do not merit, based on their charges, being in a locked facility. So this is an interim step for them until their next programming or their court cases are ultimately disposed. So we haven't been open long enough really to see kids coming out of lockup, coming back to the shelter in a transitional housing state, and then they would move on either home or some other living arrangement. But we're able to accommodate all those things. We partnered with Schuylkill Valley School District. Yeah, there were some bumps in the road, but I think right now the programming from an educational standpoint is happening, and it's happening efficiently, and we're very pleased about that. And the next thing that we're working on is getting the programming in place coordinated effort between Children's Services, Juvenile Probation, and our MHDD Director, Pam Seaman, who has been really great in helping us coordinate the medical needs, the dental needs, and the mental health care for the kids that are in the shelter. Every single one of these kids, it's not a secret, it's reported widely, has some need for mental health care. And this is an area that we're trying to develop, and it's going to be an ongoing effort, but we're making that effort. So with that, I'll just say that our goal is eventually to transition this program out of that facility. It's not the most ideal, but it's working under the circumstances. And eventually we have an eye on maybe moving it over to the detention center if we move forward with that. And that leads to Kevin's topic next.
Thank you, Larry. So tying directly to the youth shelter, which is up and operational, is the Regional Youth Detention Center. As some may recall, back in 2012, we closed this facility at the North Campus across the street from the youth center due to lack of census. We had about 8 juveniles in the facility, 24/7 operation. It just really was a loss for the county. So we then directed those youth to other facilities. Now, what has happened in the last 2 or 3 years is these other facilities that were housing youth have stumbled. Some have failed. An awful lot of other counties have closed their doors as well. Now there's an uptick in violent juvenile crime, especially in urban areas. So we heard loud and clear from the State Department of Human Services the need for regional solutions. I believe any day in the Commonwealth there's about the need for almost 300 beds for juveniles for detention. And we were told that $1 would not be spent by the Commonwealth if you were just simply reopening the Berks County Youth Center. So we embarked on a crusade to connect with our friends and colleagues in both Lehigh County and Dauphin County who have the same critical need that we have for juvenile detention, and have really worked earnestly with them, with their directors of their JPO departments and their fiscal folks. Thanks to Laura Jones and our budget office for spearheading the financial piece of this. But we're looking to reopen this facility in the first quarter of 2026. Again, supply chain concerns with getting the building up and running, but as a regional facility, in the hopes that the state will also come forward with some significant reopening dollars. As everyone knows, in the housing market and the construction market, numbers are just astronomical. Berks County will not and cannot open this alone, but needs the support of the state and Lehigh and Dauphin County to make this happen. We took a snapshot in time a few weeks ago and said, if today we open this facility, how many juveniles could you send us? And immediately there was a need for 30 juveniles to be housed in youth detention. Most of them, unfortunately, are put in shelters where they should not be placed. And they should not be placed there, as well as many of them are out on the street on ankle monitors. And basically there's no way for them to, they reoffend. They're out on the street, they have the ankle monitor on, they're out doing the same foolish things, terrible things that we're doing. So unfortunately, many of these youth really do need to be detained for the safety of the community. So again, we're looking at moving forward with this. We hired a CGL, a nationwide consultant on jails, prisons, and administrative facilities, courthouses, and so forth. They've been really, really good. We've had some real good sessions with them, really planning this building, making some changes because we want to make sure when we are ready to open this door, it's going to pass state inspection. There are plans to do some minor renovations as well as some expansion to meet modern day standards. So again, we have a juvenile concern in the communities, primarily Harrisburg, Allentown, and Reading, and this has really been pushed and advocated for by our courts, law enforcement, JPO, as well as CYS, to make sure we have suitable accommodations for these youth in the community. Moving on to something that's right here, right in front of our faces in the next 14 days is the 2024 election. Our team supports kind of a backroom type thing. We support the election department and all their efforts. We help them ramp up for the general election. We've advocated for and made sure that there was reinforcement of physical as well as operational security for election services, not just for our employees, but for the voters who are coming here to our facility. We also were part of a 2.5-day review by the Department of Homeland Security, reviewing our South Campus, our Ag Center, the Sam Inc. building where the mail-in process is done on Election Day, and the Services Center for recommended improvements to enhance security for elections. So we also provide, logistical support on Election Day, even prior to Election Day, simply a matter of getting parking spaces out in front of the Services Center set up and ready to go through our facilities department. And a lot of coordination takes place with Jonathan Heinzman, our public relations officer, because Stephanie Nogiri, who is our assistant administrator of elections, has her hands full. She was the prior public relations officer. She interacts with Jonathan on a daily basis with inquiries from the media on issues that need answers from a public relations point of view. And we here in our department really handle election questions that are not of legal nature. We handle some of the other things that we can answer without having to have the wonderful services of Cody Kaufman, who has memorized the election code. I think he actually knows all the numbers by heart. And then on Election Day, we provide all the support that's necessary because it's all hands on deck. And we have 6 very capable people who jump in and help out wherever we're needed. We kind of float around if there's any concerns or issues at the polls or at the SAM building or at the call center that's located here or in election services. We're here to jump in and help out. So it's, again, one of our responsibilities. It's not our department per se, but we certainly lend daily support as much as humanly possible to Ann Norton and her staff.
Kevin touched on something there, and that's the lending support. One of the things I think that we both acknowledge right up front is we don't do any of this just by ourselves. I mean, we've got a great team internally, but we really have a great partnership and working relationship with our solicitor and her staff. Cody's obviously a huge part of that as well, with Christine, and then Jess Weeknecht and Kristen Scheffler and the HR team. And we are in constant contact with them on almost everything because it always seems to tie back together. And I think that was worth noting. In terms of talking about our team in a larger sense with the county, one of the programs that we're working on right now, our projects we're working on, is the COOP plan, which is continuity of operations planning. Essentially what that is, we have to realize in this world, there's a reality that we're going to face cyber attacks, natural man-made disasters, or like we saw with the pandemic, where we don't have access to the facility for one reason or another. When that happens, instead of trying to figure out what to do at the time, if we plan for those kinds of occasions, hope they don't happen, but if they do, know that we're going to be able to meet the needs of the community that we serve, because there are clearly a lot of people who rely on the services the county government delivers on a daily basis. So I think we've had close to 40 meetings. I don't think that's an exaggeration. We've met with several of the departments. In fact, I think we're darn near have met with all of them, but we're now circling back with several because we have to clarify some of the information that we do. What we've tried to identify is what are those critical services that need to be provided by those departments. And then, not to say that one service is more important than another, but there are certain things that need to be prioritized. So what we don't want to do is, in the event of an emergency, waste time and effort and energy trying to figure out what to do, when if we can gather all this information, we will be in a position where we can respond immediately in the case of an emergency. The other thing that we've learned about this is, and I think it's been extremely instructive for both Kevin and I, And the other two members of the team who are Brian Gottschall, who's our Director of Emergency Services, and Chuck Brantman, who is the Chief Information Security Officer in the IT department. Excuse me. One of the things that we've discovered is we're learning an awful lot about the internal operations of departments that are outside the direct report sphere that Kevin and I have. Working with the courts and what they would find it would be necessary. It's really been an instructive thing. We said probably another lesson we're going to get out of this too, and this goes back to something that our former Chief Information Officer, Justin Luce, pointed out, was this ties to budget. When we get an opportunity to see where the priorities are, where the relationships are, what are the necessary services that are provided, how does that tie back to the budget and the direction of resources to those departments that provide the critical needs. So that'll be something that will probably come out of this, a little bit of an efficiency study at the end of it. But once we have all of our side of the work done, then we'll come to the board, ask for approval to bring in a consultant who can help us kind of analyze all of this data and give us a plan so that when it happens, we're ready to implement without delay.
It's important to note that we also touch on the opioid settlement funds. These became available in the past few years. There continue to be waves of money coming through with legal settlements, and Cody Kaufman is at the forefront with this, as well as the Council on Chemical Abuse in our department, determining the proper distribution and qualification for this money to be distributed amongst the community. And I just wanted to highlight this. And what's most important is there's an Exhibit E that's with the trust environment that comes out of the Commonwealth, and really what you can spend this money on. We cannot bring this in and pay salaries and benefits and build things with opioid settlement. This is not the cigarette settlement of, I think it was in the 80s, where literally municipalities, counties, and so forth were building roads and bridges with this money. It was squandered. This is really, and I have to admire them, that this is really knuckled down with Exhibit E at the second to last bullet point, is it's for prevention, treatment, and recovery efforts. It is not for individual use. It's not for any other purposes. And we reviewed, I think last year when we had to put in our report, about 28 different community organizations and made sure they met the litmus test with Exhibit E. COCA has loaned us Stan Papadimitriou as an advisor as well. So he sifts through Exhibit E and sifts through the applications for us. And we meet on a monthly basis and determine the best and highest use of the funding as it continues to come through, as well as not just the county receives money, but also the district attorney's office. So we're also partnered with John Adams and his department to make sure we're not duplicating or triplicating these certainly well-needed monies out in the community. We're working together hand in glove and finding really, really positive change in the community with this opioid settlement fund. Again, another thing that you wouldn't think this team does, but one of the things we think is critically important. And most important, if you're a provider of prevention, treatment, and recovery, please tune into the budget operations meeting on November 12th at 9:30 a.m. You can come here in person or Microsoft Teams. We will be laying out our most recent update on the pending amount of money coming in and what has been spent thus far. We're looking at early 2025 doing more or less like a 90 to 120 day application period, and then determine of those applications which follow Exhibit E, and then make those necessary disbursements to the community. So it's well needed, well deserved money coming to the community, because we know opioids is a huge crisis in our community, and it's hopefully it has peaked and is going to start going in the proper direction with the support of the settlement funds. Touching on capital plans, working with Bob Patrizio, his budget team, we meet quarterly with the key departments, and I call the key departments IT, jail, parks and recreation, and facilities and operations. Key meaning they're the biggest utilizers of capital money. There are some smaller ones that do use some capital, but these are the four big hitters. We sit down and we go line by line through the budgets, the capital budgets. Can we defer this? Can we find a better price? Can we move this ahead? In some ways, we look at it and say, why break this out into two different components when you have to remobilize? So maybe we should do this project all in one shot instead of stretching it out. So it's really worked well with the departments, with their support and input. And we realign capital projects based on the goals and objectives of the Board of Commissioners. So it's been really, really working well to make sure that those hard-earned tax dollars used for capital are used in the highest and best purpose. So we join those teams as well. And it's really, really worthwhile to have that dialogue with these department heads. You have the old wants and needs. What do you want? What do you really need? This is county government. We have to live on a budget just like you do at your home.
So we did reference earlier the Berks First magazine. I think it's just important to mention that we just saw the fifth edition hit mailboxes and households all across the county over the past week. We're really proud of the quality of the magazine that has been produced. This is really Jonathan Heitzman's baby. He oversees the coordination of the assembly of the articles and reviews the content that is provided from the departments. He goes through and serves essentially as the chief editor or editor-in-chief, I guess you would call that. But he hounds us with his articles here. We as the COO team serve as the editorial board. Some are a little bit better at that than others, and I'll admit that I'm often delinquent in that area. But we really do endeavor to produce a quality magazine that isn't just a public relations product. What it is intended to be is an opportunity to provide some in-depth overview of what county departments do on a daily basis, or to highlight programs that are just not receiving the coverage in the media that we feel allows people to have a better understanding of what county government does and how it does it. We work with Hoffman Publishing, which just recently was sold and has a new owner, but we're making sure that transition happens smoothly. We'd also want to just mention to folks, if for some reason you're a new homeowner and you're not receiving the Berks First magazine at home, you can go to the county website and you can sign up so that you get on that distribution list. And then lastly, I think a shout out to Commissioner Rivera and to his assistant, Barbara Lopez. We do produce a Spanish language version that is online, and in large measure because of the work they do and coordinating the interpreter services that we have to be able to have a Spanish language version of the magazine as well.
Our second to last slide, we kind of called out about half of the departments that we have oversight of. And just to run down very quickly, the Berksheim, we're involved in coordinating the new administrative director, deputy director, and dietary supervisor. We're engaged in all those conversations with our management firm, CHR, to ensure the quality delivery of care for our residents. We have a 420-bed nursing facility with well over 500 employees. It's the largest nursing home in Berks County, and it's a treasure, and we want to keep it that way. Berks County Jail, we assist the warden with capital priorities to maximize the utilities of the existing jail. We know it's a 1933 and a 1993 structure, and we work with him hand in glove to make sure the conditions are right for both the employees as well as the inmates, and keep things rocking and rolling. 911 emergency management support for Brian Gottschall. They're working with CELG, the Center for Excellence in Local Government, on an emergency services proposal. We're reviewing that with them as well. So there's a lot of external things that Brian does work on, and we support him on those endeavors. Children and Youth Services, as many of you know, our 34-year well, she was here for 34 years, but was our director of children and youth. Brandy Nider recently retired. So we're in support of the interim leadership team and staff to ensure critical services are delivered to children and families. It's a big department. There's about 178 full-time employees working in children and youth services. So it's a critical factor for us to keep an eye on what's taking place there. Mental health and developmental disabilities, touched on Pam Seaman and her great work, aiding in the development of a long-term structured residential treatment program in the former Berksheim Annex. We're hoping to utilize the top floor of the old Berksheim Annex beginning in the spring of 2025 with a private provider to provide long-term structured residential treatment with folks in the criminal justice system with mental health concerns. Area Agents on Aging, again, those folks over 60 who need benefits, we support Jessica Jones and her endeavors. And last year she came to us with an initiative, and this is not like government, but we insourced a service, and she wasn't sure if it was going to work out, but she just did an amazing job with her staff. We insourced this, saved money, and provided better care for in-home services for the folks over the age of 60. And very recently, as everyone probably knows, we were successful in relocating the Veterans Affairs Office from the downtown campus on Cherry Street, which was not sized enough and relatable enough for the folks who we're now servicing at the new location in Wyomissing. Much more space for the veterans. And as Jay Ostrich again emphasized to us yesterday, he deals on a daily basis with 23,000 vets with mental health issues and big concerns. And you can see it on his face that it's really taxing the critical level of services our veterans need. So we wanted to give them a top flight, top of the line location. And we think we found that in Wyomissing, and we're already talking about a ribbon cutting sometime in November to really celebrate those folks who dedicated their lives in service to their country.
Next, we'll look over in the next column. I guess you would call this one of the less sexier things we get to do, but we've worked on the top to bottom policy and procedure review. Again, that doesn't happen without an awful lot of other folks being engaged, in particular the HR team and the solicitors team. That's a group effort, and really and truly Kevin has headed that up. So that is a project that is ongoing. Cybersecurity, as I mentioned in the COOP discussion, this is the reality of where we are today. There are constant and continuous cyber attacks on county assets, and we're fortunate to have a very robust cybersecurity team in place, led by Chuck Brantman under the direction of Tim Smith, who is our Chief Information Officer. Next is economic development. Obviously, you heard from Pam and the great work that they're doing. Really, our goal there is, again, just to provide whatever tools Pam needs with her team to be able to effectively work on economic development programming, and as you saw, Imagine Berks for the county. Working again collaboratively with the HR team. Recruitment and retention. This is something that we have to reach out to both our department heads as well as HR and legal in many cases. The workforce environment has changed. The expectations of today's workers have changed. It's not all economic, as we talked about with the space allocation. Some of it is environment. They want green space, they want open space and daylight, and they don't want walls, and opportunity for collaboration. So that's a big part of it. Obviously, we went through the compensation study about a year ago, which the commissioners implemented to try to help. We've done recruitment bonuses and sign-on bonuses with Berksheim in order to attract top flight nursing and professional staff at Berksheim to provide good care at our county operated nursing home. Succession planning is really something that is a critical need. It's something that Kevin and I have made a priority. Again, the board wanted to see this happen, and we're doing our best to make that happen. You'd like to think that when people come and rise to the level of a department head or a deputy that they're committed, but there are other opportunities for people, and we have a mobile workforce as well. So we do see people leave. Some people do come to the end of their careers and retire. So we think it's extremely important to have qualified people in the queue and ready to go when those vacancies occur. Kevin mentioned earlier our support of the row officers. As he said, they're independently elected officials. They have the ability to prioritize initiatives in their departments. What we try to do is advocate for them when they do develop an initiative that we believe we can get behind and support, because it's going to lead to overall efficiency in county government. And of course, the better delivery of services to the public. Collaboration with court administration and with the courts. I think this is a big one. People may not always understand the relationship between county commissioners and the administration that you oversee, and then the courts and how they operate. While the county ends up funding the vast majority of the programs that are provided through the courts are independent. The judges are independently elected. The court administrator is a state employee, not a county employee, and several of her staff are state employees. But we are able to bring everybody together. Kevin and I meet on a regular basis with the president judge and on an as-needed basis with the team from court administration. I think, I've been around here. This is my 33rd or 34th year. And honestly, I think this is the best working relationship that I have seen between the two sides of county government, between the commissioner's administration and the courts. It's really a good working relationship. And as a result, good things are happening. And then the Reading Regional Airport, and even though that's on my list, that's really a priority for Kevin as a former commissioner, but Kevin serves on the regional airport board. I believe you're the treasurer.
Yes.
And a board member. And there are so many good things happening at the Reading Airport. We had the op-ed in the paper a couple of weeks ago that really highlighted the good things that are happening. Zach Tempesco and his team have done a heck of a job out there. We actually turned a little bit of a profit, and we see really good opportunities for growth in the future. The long-term contract with Quest Diagnostics, that's enormous for the airport, and good things to come down the line. So we're excited about what we do, if you can't tell.
Not only is Larry a great partner, but he's a heck of an artist. So you can see up in the upper right-hand corner is his little handiwork. So that's our logo. We're invested in you, Team Kevlar. If you don't get the connection between Kevlar, invested in you. So that's us. And
I think it should be a little grayer though.
That's our, well, you have to figure out which one's which. So
I'm with you there.
yeah. He did that on a napkin. So, but we get comments about it. We're really a positive team. It's great to work together. We do what's important now meetings with our team every week. We just go through priorities and policies and what we're working on and who's struggling and who needs help with things. So it's really, really a great team. And we want to thank the board again for pulling us all together, being part of this. And we love what we do. We go home at night exhausted, but guess what? We come back in the next day, and it's really fun. It's a lot of fun. It's challenging, but there's a lot of fun involved in it. So with that, we probably took more time than we should have, but nobody stopped us.
Thank you very much, Kevin and Larry. From a perspective standpoint, I can understand how some people might look at this and say, why do you really need these folks? One of the things that I have done from time to time since we have Larry and Kevin on board is ask the question, where would we be without them? And the answer, simply put, is a number of these projects wouldn't even be happening, and others would not be as efficient as they are. And here's why. In the past, and Kevin, you remember this, you have some experience, when you had a single administrator, we had to keep on top of it all the time. They had the capacity of one person. if they had, some help, maybe 1.5 people working on a massive project like space allocation. And on top of that, the core day-to-day role is to oversee and support all of the direct report departments. Based on the list I saw from Jesse Blauser several months ago, this is the tip of the iceberg. I think it's a lot of the big stuff. And I appreciate that you focused your attention on youth shelter, on the space allocation study, on the Ag Center, the South Campus. Those are big things. But unfortunately, in the past, a lot of the big things weren't even doable. And the small things happen out of necessity. A problem popped up in this department and you put the attention on that department. And I think one of the reasons you have the cooperation and support among the direct reports, but even the courts, is because you're able to invest. I know you're busy, but you've made a commitment to invest your time and resources, and you represent the commissioners. There's nothing that you're doing, and just, again, anybody watching, that they've gone off and done on their own. This is a Kevlar project. These are county projects that the leadership team, the commissioners, our assistants, the COO team, HR, the solicitors team, sit down and, when necessary, bringing in budget or bringing in facilities or bringing in IS, make decisions about what is in the best interest, not just short-term, but long-term for the county, and move these projects forward. Bob, you've been here since third quarter 2004, and I think you would agree, a lot of this stuff just wouldn't even be happening. It's not possible. We don't have the resources, and now we do, and it's our role to be part of the visionary and the decision-making process and make sure you have the resources you need to accomplish the goals and objectives. And I could not be more thrilled with what you've accomplished and your team. I still go back, and without going into any detail, when we came up with this idea, I had meetings over the course of 2 or 3 days in my office with Kevin and Larry, and I wasn't convinced it was going to work. I thought these guys knew each other. I mean, they've worked here for so long, and I found out they knew each other from passing, but that was it. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. They just didn't really have that connection, and the connection today is familial. I mean, they really stand together, work together, and the county and county taxpayers benefit because of it. Other thoughts, comments?
I just want to reiterate that I appreciate what your team has done, not just for the whole board, of course, but also for me personally as a new commissioner. The experience that you guys have, I'm not going to say you're old, but you've been around a while at this county and have the experience and the knowledge that I think is important. That's been very, very, very helpful to me. And I think it's also important at this meeting to let the public know all the hard work and the good work that you've done. That makes us look pretty good, quite frankly. But I just wanted to thank you for that personally, for helping me in my journey as the new commissioner on the board. So thank you very much. And also to all the members of your team as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to the Kevlar team. You do a great job. And don't bring up politics, but Commissioner Linebaugh brought it up, so I'll just talk about it. We have a Republican and a Democrat, and it just goes to show that here at the county, we hire the people that can do the job. We don't care whether they're Republican, whether they're Democrat, or whether they agree with us on political views or not. What we care about is getting the job done and hiring the people that have the credentials to be able to do the job. And the two of you being different political parties, but you've grown together, you work together, and you've helped the county move forward. And I think that's a testament. And this is something that at other local, at other levels of government, local, state, federal, something that they need to look at and say, you know what, it's not about a party, it's about getting the job done and doing what's best for the community. So I want to thank you for that on that end. Just something I want to touch on here. There's a ton of work that the team does, but if we look at a few of the first slides were around the work that is being done here in the downtown campus, the North Campus, and the South Campus here downtown. 30 years that really nothing has been done to these buildings here. And it's just like your home or just like your car. If you don't maintain it, it starts falling apart at some point. So it will have, and it has been having an impact on the budget last year, this year, and it will have for the short term. But for the long term, it will have a positive impact on the budget, because not only are we upgrading it, we're giving it maintenance so that we can extend the longevity of these buildings here, but it's also creating better workspace. Right now, a lot of the offices are functionally obsolete. If you walk into some of the offices, it's really kind of depressing to have, see the spaces that are there and have people have to walk into that space and get motivated to work every day. So with this, also part of the purpose is to make the space more functionally appropriate and increase the morale of the efficiency of the employees as well, that they can work into space, that they can walk into a space and say, wow, you know what, I love my space here. It helps me think, it helps me get my work done. So that's something that's important, that we have to look at it also, that right now it is having a negative impact on the budget, but in the long run, it will have a positive impact on the budget and the county effectiveness overall. Look at the Ag Center, 50 years. And if you ever walked in there, it looks that old. It looks like it was 50 years old. The bathrooms, the handicap accessibility, and everything else there. So instead of demolishing the building or building new, we said, you know what, this building was well built. Let's put the money into it to make it more efficient space-wise, and also in new windows, new HVAC system, which will make it more efficient as well in that aspect. So what we're doing, again, will have it and is having an impact on the budget right now. But when we look at it, not only in the short term, we have to look at it in the long term as to what impact that will have on the budget and on the efficiency of the county properties for the next 25 to 30 years that you mentioned. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. People may be saying, well, why are we putting so much money in right now? And because of that, we need to make sure that we do projects that will improve the physical properties for the long run. And we really haven't had the capacity to do it prior. And so something we need to focus on right now. So there's a lot of other things, but I know time-wise, I will keep it at that. We do want to make people know that we look at needs versus wants. That's a lot of the discussion. Okay, what is something that we need to do, and what is something that we would like to do, and understanding that everything that's a want versus a need does continue to add to the budget impact. So I like to look at the wants versus the needs. And thank you for the great work that you do.
Thank you. Commissioner, anything? Okay.
Said something.
Yes, you did. You're right. A lot's been said.
Oh, just one other thing. I'm
Sure.
sorry. So Beers Hoppin is going to be here for a budget ops meeting on December 10th. Mark your calendars. It will be the annual update on the space allocation plan. There are some things that have been modified, predominantly in the courthouse facility, that we need to present to you for approval. So last October was the initial presentation, but there are some modifications, I think very positive modifications we've kicked around with Beers Hoppin over the last year or so.
So in closing, I'm reminded of a large aerial photograph that is sitting on my conference table in my office. Lisa Hetrick from Penn State Extension, probably a week or two ago, sent me this huge cardboard taped together piece with a book on Berks County government from 1959 and another one that was a little more recent, I think from the 70s. But I opened up the cardboard and here is an aerial of the most of the North Campus. Not all of it was there. And it took me a few moments looking at it to realize that what I was looking at was something from the mid 1970s. And for a lot of people that have only gotten involved in county government recently, and that was Anne Marie's experience, I looked at it and I could see where our youth shelter and the library is. But there's this big building attached to the back. That was the old sanatorium. Across the street from the Ag Center's there, but across the street was the old Berksheim. Those buildings were there when I started working here. And when we talk about how do we make a decision on what we save versus what we demolish, if you recall, the ICE operation was in part of the Berksheim, and it was a very odd design layout. And then all the way at the end was archives, I believe the coroner's office, Veterans Affairs, and
the book bonanza.
And the book bonanza was there, yes. And this is 2008. And we had some issues come up with black mold. And then ended up, we did a study. It was through virtually the whole building. And the cost to remediate was greater than the cost to demolish. And we determined that building wasn't necessary. That's when ICE was moved over to where we now have the Berks Youth Shelter. Probably around the same time, we took a tour of the sanatorium and we did a study of the sanatorium. It was a little scary. You walk through that. It was literally like somebody turned the lights off and walked out. There were, gurneys in the middle of the hallway. And I don't know if you remember, we walked in, I think on the second or third floor, looked down a hall, and there's a red light flashing. And I said, I thought you're not using this for anything. And our facilities person said, oh, that's Esther. I said, what do you mean that's Esther? Well, it's a bathroom. It's one of those buttons you would pull or strings you would pull if you had an emergency. He said, we've gone back and have reset that again and again and again. And we come back and the light's flashing again. So we call that Esther. Ultimately, we did that study. The facility did not make sense to refurbish and utilize, and we demolished that. And that's the kind of steps that you have to take. We did the same study with the Ag Center. The numbers came back completely the opposite. The Ag Center had solid bones. It needed a refreshing, but we would have spent probably 3 times or more than we are spending now if we had demolished that and built a new facility. So anyone that wants to look at that, it's probably, I don't know how large, but it's a fascinating aerial. It's before the North Campus Activity Center was built. It's before the Reading Fair, which is now the Berks County Fair. Before the new Berksheim.
Youth Center.
You can't see the new Berksheim before the youth center. So very fascinating piece of information. Thank you for everything you do. That brings us to the end of our agenda. There is no public comment in person. There's no public comment online.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting stands adjourned.